In this video, we're going to be looking at the topic of probability with a focus on dependent events. On the left-hand side, I have two numbered cards that are going to be drawn without replacing. If the probability of an odd number is 3/7, find the probability of one even from two cards. So I think one of the best things you can do with a question like this is to always draw a diagram. A diagram will help you to see all the different outcomes that you can get from, in this case, selecting two numbered cards. The probability of getting an odd number on the first card is 3/7. The probability of getting an even number must be what's left. 1 take away 3/7 is 4/7. A second card must be drawn. So this could be an odd number. Now, since the cards are not being replaced, the number of odd numbers has now been decreased by 1. The total number of cards have been decreased by 1. So my probability is equal to 1/3. This means that the probability of an even number is now 1 take away a third, which is 2/3. The probability of getting an odd number, if my first card was an even number, will be 3 out of 6, which simplifies down to a half. Now, because I've already selected an even number on my first draw, that means that there are now 3 left over out of 6, and this simplifies down to a half. As you can see, there are 4 different outcomes from selecting two cards: an odd number and an odd number, an odd and even and odd, and even and even. I'm after the outcomes that result in one even number from two cards. This means odd and even, or even and odd. Whenever listing a set of outcomes, you will generally use two words: and, which means multiply, or, which means plus. So to calculate the probability of odd and even, I need to look at my diagram. 3/7 times by 2/3. Or the other scenario was that I wanted the probability of an even and an odd. And looking at my diagram, 4/7 multiplied by 1/2. I'm then going to add 3/7 times 2/3 with 4/7 times a half. Whenever we multiply fractions, we multiply the numerators and the denominators together. So this gives me 6/21. Add on 4 times 1, which is 4, 7 times 2, which is 14. Both of these fractions can be simplified. Looking at 6/21, this can be cancelled down to 2/7. The second fraction, dividing top and bottom by 2, can also be simplified down to 2/7. Now that I've got a common denominator, all I need to do is add the numerators, which is 4/7. This is my final answer. This is the probability of getting one even from two cards. Pause the video here and have a go at the question on the right hand side. When you're ready for the answer, press play. So as we did before, let's draw a diagram. It's the same scenario where I have numbered cards, and I'm looking at the probability of it being odd or even. So on my first draw I could get an odd or an even number. The probability of getting an odd number is 4/7. The probability of getting an even number will be 1 minus 4/7, so 3/7. On my second draw, I could also get an odd or an even, except the probability of getting an odd will now be 3/6, because the number of odds have decreased by 1, and also the total number of cards, so that simplifies to a half. The probability of getting an even number will be 1 minus a half, so that's a half. If I'd selected an even number on my first go, I could then get an odd number or an even. There were 4 odds out of 7 cards altogether at the beginning, so the probability will now be 4/6, because the total is decreased by 1, but the number of odds remains the same. This simplifies down to 2/3. Taking this away from 1 gives me 1/3 as the probability of selecting a second even number. I need the probability of 1 even from 2 cards, so looking at all the scenarios that result in this, an odd and an even, or an even and an odd. So looking at the first branch, 4/7 and, meaning multiply, a half, or, meaning plus, the probability of getting an even is 3/7 multiplied, because I'm using the word and, an odd number, 2/3. Multiplying the numerators and the denominators together gives me 4/14, add 6/21. The first fraction cancels down to 2/7. The second fraction also cancels down to 2/7. 2/7 add 2/7 is 4/7. This is my final answer.